Right, I'm going to begin by asking, I mean, when I first went to see this, I sort of assumed it'd be more of a kind of traditional biopic, and it kind of dawned on me, maybe about a third of the way through, it's actually a quite creative adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Did you have that same sort of realisation when you're reading the script, to go, oh, this is actually quite a unique kind of take on this?
Definitely, yeah. It was not a plan of mine to play Dickens or do a Christmas movie or even a period movie, but, you know, and even the tagline, I was like, okay, Dickens writing a Christmas Carol, all right. But once I got into the script and realised just how funny and playful and kind of silly the conceit was, and how unlike anything I'd seen before it was, and also, you know, the Christmas Carol is such a part of my life, really, childhood upbringing. You know, it's a much loved book in our house. Muppet Christmas Carol, huge fixture, and just to look at the man behind it all was a really fresh take for me, especially as someone who's grown up, you know, with English literature, a big part of my education and my, you know, college degree, and just to appreciate the man at a stage that we don't often think of him at, you know, without the famous beard, before greatness has really, you know, fallen on him. He's had some early hits, few flops, and, you know, he's now at a point where he really needs that next big hit. He's got 4 kids, 1 on the way, mounting debt, and he's driving himself a bit mad. And not only that, he's given himself an impossible deadline of 6 weeks to write this new Christmas book, and it's quite an intriguing moment in his life.
And do you think your relationship with his work has changed now you've got into his head and sort of embodied him in it? Well,
definitely. I mean, no, I wouldn't claim that I know it any better, but I definitely have gone back and reread books that I thought I knew, and seen them in a whole new light. And once you get past that initial fear of you know, breaking open a Victorian novel that seems so kind of forbidding, and realised just how, you know, funny and witty and playful he was, and by turns very kind of tragic and, you know, melodramatic and you know, very, very moving and, you know, profound author at times. And the sort of the way that he dances the line between those two things is really delightful and quite special, and really kind of transcends his time period. I think he's really interested in humanity, in humanism, and in those sort of kernels of character in all walks of life, really. He's a great observer of people, you know.
I mean, obviously there's always a kind of pressure of taking on any role in movies, but you would think there's a big pressure when you play someone like Charles Dickens. But do you think the quite playful approach to the movie actually alleviated some of that? Because there's no obligation to reality and realism really in this movie. It's a very kind of sort of endearingly cinematic affair, I suppose.
I hope so. I think it, you know, it has a fantastical element to it. There's a sort of magical realist element. It is quite heavily biographical. His daughter talks about finding him in his study, conjuring these characters, really trying to manifest them, and pulling these weird faces and making these bizarre voices, you know, for hours on end, and you know, no one could come near him while he was in this sort of frenzy trying to create these characters, and we have him actually, you know, manifest them, and they play a role in their own character development. And you know, but there is definitely a playful, fantastical element to it, and I hope we have a bit of fun with that.
And what's your favourite Dickens novel? Because when I was at when I started did English literature for sixth form, they gave us Hard Times. Have you ever read Hard Times? It's not a good one. If you want to get people
tough.
into,
I mean, it's a bit more of a slog than some of them. I was always a big fan of Great Expectations. I remember reading that very early on, and I had a great double cassette audio book of it read by Tom Baker, which I just listened to a lot when I was a kid, and I should dig it out and listen to it again, actually. But, you know, Tom Baker as a sensibility and a personality is amazingly sort of Dickensian. He's sort of very, very funny and weird and silly and very dark and you know, dramatic, and he's got all of it there. So yeah, he's been Dickens has been a part of my life, you know, for a long, long time, really.
I mean, talking of big characters, I mean, Christopher Plummer in this, that must have been a real joy to be.
It was amazing.
With him every day.
Yeah, you know, he turned 87 on our set, and he was just so witty and funny and sparkly and playful, and everything that, you know, boils into his Scrooge, and, you know, everything that we hoped it would be in terms of that dynamic between Scrooge and Dickens, and the playfulness that they have in that study, and, you know, and how much of Dickens is in Scrooge, and you know, that was all just really delightful to discover with him. He was a really amazing man. Did
you do anything for his 87th birthday on set?
He wasn't big into celebrating it, really. I think you get beyond a certain age and you stop counting, really. He didn't want a big fuss. We also weren't allowed to mention Sound of Music. He doesn't like to talk about it.
Because I would have done aid advice to him as soon as he came on set.
It was everyone's sort of under their breath, really. Couldn't talk about it.
And just very quickly before I go, Apostle obviously is so exciting because we're big fans of Gareth Evans.
I am too, yeah.
It sounds like a slightly different direction from The Raid by the sound of things.
It is. It's sadly not The Raid 3. Lots of people want it to be. I wanted it to be. I kept trying to get him to work in some mad kung fu sequence for me, but there's definitely some action in it. There's a lot of violence. It is a pretty extraordinary film. I haven't seen a finished cut yet. I've seen little tiny glimpses, and he's a really special filmmaker, the Welsh Tarantino. He's quite brilliant.
Lots of violence. That's all I wanted to hear. To be honest.
Yeah. It's I think that'll be out next year sometime. Yeah, I'm really excited to see it. My Brexit movie.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, man.
Much appreciated. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey, you guys!